The Valley of Iron was hushed, its cliffs dark with shadow as the drums of the clans beat like thunder across the mountains. Torches flared in the night, lining the ancient dueling circle carved into the stone generations ago. Here, beneath the eyes of the ancestors, blood was spilled to decide law, to decide honor, to decide fate itself. And tonight, the circle was not filled by two warriors of the clans. Tonight, an outsider stood there, bound in chains. He was human, a deathworlder, the kind whispered about in legends. His kind was rare here, almost myth, said to be too dangerous for most worlds. Too stubborn to break, too wild to tame, too resilient to kill. And yet, here he was, dragged in chains before the clans, his eyes burning but his body broken. Across from him stood Kilira, daughter of the queen. She was fierce, tall, her armor gleaming with the silver runes of her bloodline. In her hand was a blade older than memory, its steel etched with glowing symbols that pulsed with faint blue fire. She had fought dozens of duels, claimed dozens of victories, and now her mother had commanded her to end the outsider in the ancient way, before all who watched. The queen herself sat on her throne of black steel above the circle, her gaze sharp and merciless. "Let the blood of the alien soak the stones," she declared, her voice echoing. "Let it be known that no stranger holds claim to our rights." The drums ceased. Silence fell. Kilira advanced, her blade raised. The human said nothing, only lifted his eyes to hers. There was no fear in them, only something steady, unyielding. She struck fast, her blade flashing. Steel kissed flesh. Blood spilled. But then, the world changed. The instant her blade cut his palm, the runes upon it flared brighter than ever before. Not blue now, but gold. A light so pure, so burning, it blinded those who stared too long. The symbols leapt from her weapon, alive, racing up her arm, and across the circle itself. Kilira froze, her heart slamming in her chest. The light pulsed once, twice, and then the ground itself answered. Runes carved into the very stone of the dueling circle blazed to life, ancient and forgotten, their power shaking the cliffs. The air trembled and 1,000 warriors gasped as one. The queen rose from her throne, her face a mask of shock and fury. "What is this?" she roared. But her question was drowned out by the sound of thousands of knees striking stone. The clans, hardened warriors all, had dropped to the ground, heads bowed, their voices trembling in ancient words not spoken for centuries. "The mark of the first has returned." Kilira staggered back, her blade still locked with his blood upon it, her eyes wide. She had cut him, but it was she who was undone. Her clan, her people, all knelt, not to her, not to her queen, but to the outsider whose hand glowed like the sun. The human looked down at his palm, at the golden fire that burned there, and then back at her. His voice, when it came, was low, steady, and carried across the silent valley. "I did not ask for this. But destiny had asked for him." Through the night, the clans whispered like leaves in the wind. Fires burned low, warriors muttered prayers they had not spoken since childhood, and elders searched their memories for fragments of prophecy. It was said that one day, when the clans had lost their way, the mark of the first would return, not upon one of their own, but upon the blood of the stars. The queen raged in her chambers, her voice shaking the stone walls. "It is a trick," she spat, her golden eyes burning. "Some sorcery of the off-worlders. He cannot be chosen. He cannot." But even as she spoke, her captains knelt without command, their foreheads pressed to the cold stone. Even her own blood, her daughter, stood silent, her face pale as she remembered the moment her blade betrayed her. Kilira could not sleep. She sat alone in the torchlight, her sword across her knees, its runes now dim and lifeless. It had drunk blood 100 times, yet never had it flared so. Never had it bent to another's will. And when she had touched the human's blood, it had abandoned her. Her heart warred with itself. Loyalty to her queen. Awe of what she had seen. Fear of what it meant. And somewhere deeper, buried in the shadows of her mind, was something else, hope. Dawn came to the mountain like a blade drawn from its sheath. The sky bled from black into crimson, the first light striking the ancient towers of stone that ringed the valley. Drums thundered once again, slower this time, heavy with the weight of judgment. Kilira could not sleep. She sat alone in the torchlight, her sword across her knees, its runes now dim and lifeless. It had drunk blood 100 times, yet never had it flared so. Never had it bent to another's will. And when she had touched the human's blood, it had abandoned her. Her heart warred with itself. Loyalty to her queen. Awe of what she had seen. Fear of what it meant. And somewhere deeper, buried in the shadows of her mind, was something else, hope. Dawn came to the mountain like a blade drawn from its sheath. The sky bled from black into crimson, the first light striking the ancient towers of stone that ringed the valley. Drums thundered once again, slower this time, heavy with the weight of judgment. The council of clans had gathered. 7 thrones of carved obsidian faced the dueling circle, each bearing a ruler cloaked in furs, steel, or bone. They were the oldest bloodlines, the voices of law and tradition, and their word bound the clans as chains. Behind them, thousands of warriors filled the terraces, eyes fixed on the human who stood in the circle below. He was unbound now. His chains had been struck away, not out of mercy, but because even the queen's captains feared the mark would turn shackles into molten slag. His hand was still scarred, the wound unhealed yet burning faintly with golden fire. The queen rose from her throne, regal and terrible in her black steel. Her voice carried over the assembly like a storm. Clans of the mountain. You see before you the outsider who has stolen our rights. Last night he bled in the duel, and the runes flared as if in answer. Some whisper of prophecy. Some bow in ignorance. I stand here to tell you the truth, he is a deceiver. The mark of the first belongs to us, not to a cursed deathworlder. He is no savior. He is poison. A murmur ran through the crowd. The queen gestured sharply. Prove him false. Let the runes decide again. Let another cut him. If the mark flares, we shall call it a trick of sorcery. If it does not, we end him here. Before they could answer, Kilira stepped into the circle. I cut him once. I will cut him again. Let all see the truth. She approached the human slowly, her blade raised. He did not move, only lifted his palm as though offering it willingly. Their eyes met, and for a heartbeat she hesitated. Then, with a swift motion, she drew the edge across his flesh once more. The blood fell. And the world ignited. The runes did not simply flare, they erupted. Golden fire raced across the circle, leaping from pillar to pillar, spilling upward into the sky like a column of light. The ground shook, dust raining from the cliffs, the air alive with the roar of awakening power. The mark in the human's palm blazed so brightly it seemed carved into the heavens themselves. Kilira's blade went dark, its runes stripped away. The queen roared and hurled a spear. The light from his hand surged outward, shattering the weapon to dust midair. The force struck the queen like a storm wind, hurling her back against her own throne. And then, thousands of voices rose as one. We kneel to the chosen. The queen screamed, but no one followed her. The light began to fade, the golden fire sinking back into his palm, leaving only the scar, faintly glowing like an ember that would never die. The runes dimmed, the ground stilled, but the silence remained. No one moved until he did.